Mic check to everybody. Go good? All right. We will hear each other's opinion, but ultimately act as one. We will speak candidly and courteously to each other and listen to dissenting and different points of view with an open mind. We will help each other to depersonalize disagreements. Once we reach a decision or compromise as a board, we will each support the will of the board in word and in deed. Please join me for a moment of silence. Thank you. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Fairly light agenda tonight. Any amendments to the agenda that was sent out?
I move we approve the agenda as presented.
Get a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All right, so moved. Now on to our budget work session. Dr. Bucklew, we will give you the floor.
Thank you, sir.
And I learn something every time you step up there, so.
Give it just a second.
Yep.
All right. Good evening. Thank you for having me and coming to this special session so that we can work through our preliminary projected budget as we get ready to submit for the Board of Supervisors meeting. I have provided each of you a packet so that you can follow along as I walk through. I'm going to go through just a small tutorial so that you have the background of how the school budget works and how we get our information progressively from the Virginia Department of Education. So in the front, you'll see we have a short agenda of the items that we're going to cover, and I'm going to briefly read some portions of this information and give some examples. I do not intend on reading every word on the pages for you. That's why I'm provided the packets so you can refer to them later. So the first topic is the composite index. And the composite index is the local ability to pay. So that is how our county measures what ability they'll be able to contribute to the budget for the school division. It basically is broken out into three areas. You take the true value of the real property, and you'll want to follow along in the handouts that I'm giving you. The working papers are just some talking points that you can refer back to. So the definition of the composite index, which drives the local share, is on the first page with the yellow heading. So 50% of that formula is your real property, so the true value of that property. 40% is aweighted at the adjusted gross income of the annual income for the county based on the State Department of Taxation. And the third point is your taxable retail sales. That's 10% of the weighted value. And all of that is multiplied by 0.45, which is the 1/3 of the standards of quality index. So it is a formula that is quite complicated, but I have printed out the formula page of how you walk through it. So first, basically what you're doing is if you could scroll to this page. So first, they're taking all of the true values from the property and all of the three pieces that I went over a minute ago, and they're dividing them by the school's ADM. And I'll go over ADM in just a few moments. But ADM is the driver. That's our student membership. It is one of the drivers. And then they take the population of the county of Halifax, and they divide that. They divide all of the 3 points that I went over, the property taxes, the gross income, and the real property values, and divide the population. Those combined give us 2 points that then they use in the formula to multiply the 1/3 from the standards of quality. From last year to this year, our composite index has dropped. So that would mean that the local ability to pay is going to be lower. It hasn't dropped a significant amount, but it does impact because of the formula. The next handout is a stapled packet, and it will show you every school division in the state of Virginia ranking from the highest composite indexed to the lowest. So I want you to take some time there and roll down through it until you find Halifax. It's 134 school divisions. So as you can see, Halifax is ranked at number 39 out of 134. We are near the bottom of the bucket, meaning that our county is ability to pay is less than 39% of all these on the sheet. The other areas that are highlighted in yellow are our Region 8 counterparts that also serve in the locations that are adjacent to our county. So you can see they're kind of spotted out, but most are on your second page and moving towards the bottom. So about 7 divisions rank higher and 7 divisions rank lower. So there are variables that fluctuate, that change this. They only review this every 2 years. So once we're locked in at that composite for 2 years. So this will be the first year, the 25-26 school year will be the first year on the new composite index. So even if things change between now and next summer, it won't get reflected until the following assessment. So what we have done is we have gone from 0.3038 to 0.3012. And that's part of a bigger formula that will derive the local ability to pay. And I will point some of that out in a few moments as we get deeper into the calc tool. Yes. So yes, the state does give us some more. They have a bigger portion that they will provide, meaning that the local goes down on their responsibility, the state goes up on their responsibility. It's not a 1-for-1 though, so that's an important piece to remember. So we're going to leave the composite index. That's just a brief background of what it is, and we'll bring that back up in a few moments. Now I want to move to average daily membership and how that affects the budget. Average daily membership only measures students in kindergarten through 12th grade, and that is then put into a different formula. It's also a calculated formula with many variables involved, including the composite index. So you take your membership, your total aggregate, and you divide it by the number of days. So any student that starts day one, and that's not enrolled on paper, that's actually in the classroom, day one, they are a full membership as long as they don't leave early. So this ADM is measured 3 times a year. The first time of year is October, the next is March, and then there's an end of year. The March measurement, they take the average of those 3, and the March measurement will have a higher weight on how much the funding is. So if you have a student that comes in late, they're enrolled, but they don't show up till September or October, they're going to be less than a 1 membership. They're going to be a 0.8 or a 0.7, and they will stay that for that year. So on-time enrollment is important. A student that is in the 3 or 4-year-old program, they don't count. So we can be thankful for that program because it has other funding, but it's not going to count on this. If a student is in a day placement that is served in outside of the county, they don't count. So just know that there are some things that are deducted out of those numbers. With the ADM, it directs within the categories. So the next sheet that I have for you is where does the ADM directly impact the budget? So, get it up. There, yes. For the most part, you'll focus on the first column and the last column. The first column is our March 31st ADM. It will impact the basic aid, the textbooks, how much we receive for our textbooks, vocational education, and you can read down through. Anywhere with an X, that is impacted by ADM. If our ADM drops, we get less money. If our ADM goes up, we get more money. Right now, they have marked it at about $403 per student for each of these programs. The final column is your local required match. So those are also driven by ADM, but you'll notice there are actually more areas in our local ADM. So it's not a consistent ADM. It has, again, alternating variables in how they prescribed our budget. And I want to get into the next page, which is the actual local requirement. And it actually has both years, because when they produce this paperwork, they always provide the biennium, which is 2-year budget. But we'll focus on the green column, which is the 25-26 school year. The required local will be at $13,163,296. For any of those programs that are listed, if we choose not to do them, then we do not get the state money. If we certify that we are going to do the program and then we do not provide enough local effort monies, we have to sign a check back to the state. So it's important that we're balancing the budget and making sure that the local match and the local effort are being met. We don't want to sign a check back. And they have some descriptors in the bottom you're welcome to read. It's just letting you know some examples. I've also included a definition catalog for you. I'm not going to read these for you, but what these definitions will help you understand some of the language that they're using within the pamphlet. And it also provides the actual formula. So if you're a math person, you can actually plug numbers into these formulas. This is also available online so that you don't have to put it in a calculator. It'll do it for you. And if any one of you are interested on it, is the Virginia Department of Education website. So now I'd like to talk to you about our calc tool. Last year, I was able to bring the calc tool in, and I think it's a very helpful tool for you all to see and understand. This is our budget driver, and when I say our, any finance director in public schools, we have to use this as our final word on how to build our budget. Yeah, just passed. It shouldn't have come in that way. Oh, there it is. Okay. Sorry. I gotcha. All right. You'll notice that there are little arrows on the left-hand side. Those are the exact same ones that were on the sheet a few minutes ago. Each of those are driven by the ADM. So we are required to have local funding and state funding on each of those that are driven by our average daily membership. So we take this tool and we go through and we compare it with our budget from the previous year. What we do know is that our budget, in an example, and I'll show this to you, for every whole dollar, the state will provide 70 cents on the dollar. The local will provide 33 cents on the dollar. So those two together give us our dollar, and that's for every dollar in our calc tool. So that just is a visual for you to see how that's divided up. And again, any program that we do not utilize the funds or have a local match, we do not get the funding. So we just have to maintain that as we're going through our budget year. The calc tool is broken into 4 major categories: the standards of quality, the incentive program, the categorical programs, and the lottery programs. Sometimes when you see a 0 in one area, you may see the funding in a different category. They do a lot of swapping out. And sometimes their verbiage will say, we're increasing at-risk programs in the lottery funds. Last year, they were in the incentive program, and you go and you see it's less money or zeroed out. So they're really not increasing funds, they're just changing the checkbook that they're paying it from. So we have to make sure we don't just read the verbiage, we visit this calc tool. So again, with both the calc tool and the local required effort, we have to certify at the beginning of each budget year that we will implement the programs based on those tools. And that's the time we have to say, no, we're not going to do this program. Otherwise, we have to sign a check. They would much rather us tell them up front, so we kind of have to think about those things. I don't see why we wouldn't do a program if they're covering the costs, so I've never had to say we're not. We certify as it is. The only time is if our locality cannot pick up the full locality requirement. The sheet that you have in your packet with the pink columns, this is just a comparison of the last year's school budget that we're currently in. So you have the 23-24 budget. Right next to it, you have the proposed 24-25 budget. And the final 2 columns, it shows the change. So anywhere there's a red, the budget is either decreasing or they're swapping the checkbook. I would like to point out that there are some significant decreases that we need to know about so that as we're planning the final budget for the end of February, we know what we're going to be able to do or not do. Sales tax did decrease by $276,000. Remedial summer school, they're decreasing by $1,642. The compensation supplement that was on this current year's budget will not appear on next year's budget. So that drops our budget from one year to the next, $2,747. The grocery tax that caused a big ruckus last year because of the calc error within the state tool. That's actually being taken out completely. So that's a $900,000, almost another $1 million. The all-in per pupil funding was a one-time pay that we have to spread over 3 years. So we will have to maintain that budget outside of next year's budget and pull in carryover from it in order to utilize it for the next 2 years. The hold harmless that has been in our calc tool is also going away. And that's another $2,615,000 that the state is dropping. And those are not swap outs. Those are actual drops. So the only real swap that we have identified that has a significant number on it is your at-risk. Last year it was in your incentive category, and now it's going to be in your lottery category. I'm sorry, other way. Last year it was in the lottery. This year it will be in the incentive. But there's still some funding loss in that. It's not completely one for one. And I want to reiterate at this time that these are projected numbers. They're proposed by the governor. We still have the governor's final, the Senate, the House to go through. And those that weren't here last year, we ended up with 7 versions of the budget before they finally agreed. So there's a lot of exercises going in and out, and finally getting an answer. Really, we didn't get our final answer until the end of September of this school year while we're already operating. And that's why we're going through the compensation supplement now because of the delays at the General Assembly level. This is actually the second rendition that we've received so far, and it's just started. So I don't know how many we'll have moving ahead, but traditionally we should only have 3 more: Senate, House, and final governors. That's what we hope for. But I'm telling you that because we may be doing this a few more times. What I want to present now, that we've made it through the direct calc tool and how it affects, and what we're looking at in our next year budget is, under the proposed, there is no compensation supplement, but they are indicating a 1% salary bonus, which is different than a salary increase. A salary bonus only carries enough funding for the bonus and the FICA. And the FICA is your 7.65% that you add to all for Medicare and Social Security. It would not be a salary increase. Those are VRS claimable, which takes another level of funding, which we would not have. So this one would only be a bonus. They are, however, looking forward in the 2025-2026 budget, and again, that's just a proposal, of adding back a 2% salary increase. So I put that out there so that we know, looking in the future, there is a proposal for more salary increase. But this time the proposal only mentions a 1% bonus and then leading into a following year of a 2% salary increase. All right, we've made it through my short agenda. The next page is what we want to take to the Board of Supervisors at this time. It really is only focused on the promised projected revenues, which, as you can see, last year our total revenues was $84,654,534, going down to $70,337,388. Some of that impact, of course, as we knew, was the ESSER is going away. ESSER is a $9,836,141 drop off of our budget from one year to another, which we all knew. It's called that ESSER cliff. So that's the largest impact. The state revenue line, the top line, that basically was the all-in one-time funding dropping out. We had a state revenue grant called Stronger Connections. That was a one-time payment of $350,000. That won't be there any longer. The local revenue is actually increasing from one year to the next, and it's based on a couple of things. The variables within the composite index, and they've also raised the amount per child. So even though our ADM went down and our composite went down, we're actually seeing an uptick in the local. The construction fund that we carried over monies, that is not going to be in the new budget. So that one, we do have to expend this year, that $2 million. And then we added $500,000 to food service, but that is actually money that they already have in their bank account, so it's not affecting the local funding at all. And just for those that are new, the school nutrition fund is a completely separate fund from all other school operating funds. That's a federal program under the USDA. And they are allowed to carry over. They're revenue-based as well. So they have different rules. And they also have rules on how much they can carry over. So they have met their cap. So they are required to spend money. You're not allowed to carry over a certain percentage. So we do need to put that $500,000 in for equipment replacement. So this is our proposed. Again, things can change and will change as they make decisions in the General Assembly, but I just want to make sure that you all understand where we are as of today, and our final budget will be due to the county at the end of February. Between now and the end of February, we'll be meeting again for the changes that will be presented. I have included a next step timeline for you. We went ahead and started with December because that's when the original proposed was released. The calc tool was not released for a pretty long time after that came out. And then it was the day of the last board meeting, so we were not able to bring that to the board meeting the first business day that we had access to it. So, but we have been working to make sure that everything's understood, and the county does need a proposed piece from us so that they have a placeholder in the overall county budget. So mid to late February is when we would see those Senate and House come out. The governor has the option to veto the budget. If that should have happened, we have to start everything all over again. So I just need you to know that nothing at this point is final. It's all working papers, working budget. But I'm educating you on this so that I want you to be able to make a decision based on what we know right now and feel like you know a little bit more than what you did when you came in. So I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you.
Yes.
We've got a skinny little budget.
Yeah.
I actually have 4 questions.
Okay.
Off the top of your head, you might not know this, but what was the impact of the recent salary changes that we've been doing? I know we've had money to sustain. We had the whole salary adjustment about 2 years ago. That was probably the first one, and we've had several increases since. The 5% recently and an additional 2. Do you know how much annually we're going to have to sustain?
We have not calculated that at this moment, but we would bring that back in the next budget work session. We wanted to get it all, make sure it's all correct before we put any extra numbers out there. So what we'll do is, we are actually still working on getting it in. So once we do that, I'll be able to run a final and then get you those numbers.
Okay, thank you.
But I don't have them with me tonight.
No, that's fine. Thanks. I know that's a lot of work. The next question is the 2.059 million carryover. That's money that we have to spend this year, is that correct?
That is,
Do
that
we
is
have-
correct.
Do we have any plans for that money at this moment, or does that have to come before the school board? Just allocate?
It doesn't have to come before the school board, and we as a team, we are going to be getting together, working, trying to follow your CIP that has been approved and see where we can best use the funds within that. But we have not met as a team for that piece yet.
Thank you. And that was actually my next question, that 5-year capital improvement plan that we passed.
Mhm.
I think it was the spring of 2022.
Mhm.
I didn't know where we're at in keeping up with sort of the timeline with that, because I think about 1.5 every year was to maintain each sort of plan
Yeah.
for the year.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll come back to that then.
That's right. We need to have a meeting. That is one of the objectives that I have on my desk, to start getting the leadership team together, go through the CIP, see what has been completed, because ESSER did knock out some of those items. And then we'll have to probably restructure the CIP with what has dropped off so that we know best use of funds.
Thank you.
Yes.
As you know, I
Yes.
think we should take care of the schools that we have. And my last question, I know that the board has committed $4 million for the high school construction project, and my understanding is we've not paid that yet, and there's nowhere in the budget that we've approved that. So my question is, do we know where that $4 million is coming from, and when does it have to be paid by?
My understanding is it has to be paid by the end of the high school project. We do not have that in our budget. We need to have a committee that talks about those things and comes up with a plan. I know that the Board of Supervisors has a committee to talk about those things on their side, so I would like to have that on our end.
That can be the facilities, that can be part of what
The Facilities
the
Committee.
Facilities Committee can help organize it.
So that will come back before the school board as well then? Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
So, Mr. Lloyd?
First, I apologize for being behind and maybe making you late with your presentation, so I do apologize. But what I'm seeing here, I see your revenue numbers and, you know, a significant drop. Primarily, it seems to be the majority ESSER related from what I'm gathering there. Have you already started formulating plans as far as how we're going to make up for the loss of that revenue? I mean, I'm assuming there are significant cuts that we may have to make as a school division to get down to that, 14 million or whatever it was.
Right. So as a team, I would make those decisions upon myself. As a team, superintendent, assistant superintendent, we have on our schedule to get started on how to handle that and what are we going to do. We also have another piece that they may be extending our ESSER. I'm putting that out there because if they do so, then we may be reserving some of ESSER if they give us the permission to do so. So we are looking at that, but we are acting as if it's over, it's done. What are the next steps for us on making sure sustainability is there? We actually spoke this morning about that, so we're just getting it on our agendas to get the in-depth conversations and all the heads of the team at the table.
And this conversation is not just starting.
No.
We've been working on efficiency really since I got here, because we've been talking about lean times are coming.
Yeah.
This is not the first time you've heard me say this. We've been talking about every time a position is open, do we need to replace it? How do we move forward on this? So we've been looking at efficiencies in all departments, and we will continue to do so, but now it is time to really come to the table and make some hard decisions. And we are not there absolutely yet until we get absolute clear communication from really the federal government.
That's right.
Doesn't have their answer yet, because
No.
we are asking for, give us the proper steps, tell us what to do. But folks knew if they were in grant funded positions before that they may be asked to return to non-grant, to whatever, but we're not there yet. No, we are not in a panic situation.
No.
But we are looking at efficiencies in every department. We've been doing that. And we also know that this is the first iteration of this budget. We heard at a conference, you all, several of you were there, we heard that this is the governor's budget. The House and Senate do not like this version, and it's going to get beat up several more times. So again, it's early in the cycle, but we're gonna do whatever we need to do, and we're gonna get it done.
Follow up, Mr. Lloyd.
Yes. And I should recall this, likely, I should recall this, but I know every year we have the budget work sessions and we work through this. Do you remember approximately when we start seeing the expenditure side of this? I know you mentioned that you're just getting there, but do we have a time frame as far as when we may see that? Because I do have one concern that's related to that question.
Right, so expenditures will be at our next budget work session.
Okay.
This is just, like we said, just opening it up, giving the county what they need so that they can make their placeholder.
Okay.
We have to make the decisions to lay out your expenditure side.
And I asked that question, sorry.
No,
Okay. I asked that question because I know that, last year specifically, we made some prominent appointments or hires and that are directly tied to ESSER. That at that point, we had indicated we were going to review this year as far as probably an inability to sustain those hires unless we have retirements or something. So I was just wondering, I guess I'm curious to see that impact and start making those adjustments as needed. So you said next work session.
It would be next work session.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Delay?
Because I don't know, so I'm gonna ask. I want to go back to where the percentage of enrollment. You said there is if a kid is enrolled in school, you get at the beginning of the year, there's a percentage you give or something.
They count as a full ADM,
Okay.
like one ADM.
Okay. So, with that being said, if they drop out, if they move, if they are 365, do we lose funding for the position, or do they have that funding throughout since you've gotten it?
So they start your funding with that, okay?
Yes.
At the end of the year, they take those 3 windows that they pick them up for. If it has significantly dropped, and I don't have a percent of what significant means, I've asked and not been given an answer, then they could reduce. But what we have seen, the trend is you actually increase because we pick up more students throughout.
So, with that being said, I guess you answered my question. Students that fail to come or discipline issues or other issues that are removed from the school, we do not typically, what you've seen, lose funding for that.
That is what we have not seen.
Thank you so much.
Other questions? All right.
Okay, all right. So if I could just get a vote to go ahead and pass this proposal to the Board of Supervisors for their meeting, then we are good. And
Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful evening.
You too, thank you. All right, if I can get a motion to go into closed session, please. Second? Oh, excuse me, go ahead.
Pursuant to section 2.23711 of the Code of Virginia, I move that the board convene a closed meeting for the purpose of considering the following specific matters: Personnel, the appointment, resignation, and salaries of specific division employees as authorized by Section 2.23711A1 of the Code of Virginia, and discipline specific students of the school division as authorized by Section 2.23711A2 of the Code of Virginia.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
All right, we will need to convene down in the conference room.